Morning, guys. Today I just wanted to do a progress update about my latest tattoo session. So, where I last left off, I believe I had just had my belly button done for the fourth time, and I think I re-boldened some of the lines on the tentacles. I think that was the last session. And it said that I was going to be working on the eye, finishing up the eye, I figured, but there's actually quite a bit more work in there than I think either me or Rick, my artist, expected. So we did about 2.5 hours all in the same spot, and I'm happy with it, but we're not finished yet. It was a pretty long appointment, and it felt long. Or rather, it wasn't a very long appointment, but it felt long is what I want to say. Anytime you're spending a lot of time working on one specific spot, it ends up feeling like a lot of work. Where when you're moving around a lot with tattoos and getting a lot of ground covered, sometimes it feels like you're not as long, or it's not as arduous, I guess, or tiresome. But where I've worked a lot on this eye in the past, this last session was no exception. So I'll just show it off so I'm not just rambling. So we got the black set into the pattern now. So it should start making more sense to the people who weren't sure what was going on with it long term now. You can see that the outside of the pattern is done in black, and the pattern itself is going to be silver. Now, for the more astute observers out there, you'll notice I had some skulls here that have been kind of left over from the door knocker tattoos I used to have up here, and those are gone now. It's interesting is someone actually mentioned liking those on a vlog I did here recently. But I actually hated those skulls, and they were the part of my suit that I was trying for quite a while to figure out what to do with. And Rick simply sort of turned them into the teeth. Now, they don't look quite perfect yet. They're going to need to be covered over with some silver and some white to make them look more like the other teeth. But it was a pretty convincing fix. This one was easier than this one. He figures he'll have to black this one out again because he thinks that some of the white from the skulls will come through. But overall, it looks so much cleaner without those skulls in there. And I think the pattern looks a lot better this week too. It's not completely done yet because it'll have more of a shine. There's going to be a bit more red brought into it too. But yeah, it's going to have a lot more of a shine to it once we get the silver in. Obviously, the silver looks pretty shiny, and it's holding great. Right, so that's now, the silver highlights are 3 weeks old here today. Silver seems to look brighter, like kind of continually gets brighter after the first week or two. It seems like anytime we do color or like white or black over black, but particularly with the silver and the red, I've noticed they kind of go dull for a bit and they come back out brighter than they were at first. As you can see here, the red is, if anything, brighter than it was when I showed it off healed originally. It seems to keep mingling with the black underneath for quite a while before it's decided on how it's going to look. But yeah, my belly button looks a lot better now. So there's like a tiny bit of skin tone you can still see, but that's just because of all that heavy scarring. The only way you're ever going to see anything in there now that isn't shaded is if I purposely show you. Where before, if a photo was aimed the wrong way, you could see my belly button very, very visibly not black or patchy black, which was greatly upsetting considering how many times I've worked on it. For someone to black out their belly button several times and still not be black, it's annoying. I've had people actually tell me I should just remove it, and I've thought about it just because it's one of those pesky places that just seems like it's never black enough or something. Anyway, So yeah, that's the new face of the eye, or at least mostly. The silver will just brighten the contrast. So the black will look blacker, and the silver will obviously make the negative look brighter in contrast to the dark black. Um, the next session we're going to be doing is going to be, I think, a really good one. We're going to be doing highlights. So it'll be lots of silver and lots of red. These eyes are going to be red. All the little eyes all over the tentacle will be red. Tentacles will be red. There's a couple of eyes in every tentacle. So like in here, that's an eye there. So that's going to be red. But yeah, all of these spots here are going to be red and silver. There's a few spots over here that are going to be red and silver. Obviously the teeth of this one are going to be silvered out. I want to make that appointment just about highlights. This one needs more silver. Rick kind of wants to do another outline on the teeth, but honestly, these teeth have been outlined, I want to say 5 times, and they're still not crispy looking. So I don't know if we're going to get what we want out of them. He's even done an outline on them himself before, but I get what he wants to do, but it's the first idea that he's had where I'm kind of exhausted at the thought of it, because there's so much scar tissue around the eyes of this teeth from how many times they've been done and highlighted and changed and reworked, that every time you put a liner to that, they just start to bleed right away. And I don't need to tell you, but the pain level of working on something that scarred is very, very awful. And I'm normally not adverse to the pain of it. But if I'm going to be doing a lot of pain, I'd rather be getting a lot of progress out of it too. So like this tattoo session here, where we were working on the eye, for example, that didn't feel great. It didn't feel terrible. It was a long day, as I said, but I knew that we were getting somewhere. Like, we're going to get something out of it, so it feels worthwhile. Relining these teeth doesn't feel worthwhile to me, because it just feels like no matter what we do with them, they're always going to be not quite perfect. The yellow highlights that we did, and then we did shading, and we did white highlights over the yellow to try and get rid of the yellow, because I don't think the yellow was a great idea. We did, I think, 2 or 3 rounds of white highlights. Then they've been re-outlined, and then Rick added more striations to them, and more chips in them to try and make them a little more monstrous. Yeah, we've just done so much to them that I just don't know. I just think the teeth are well past finished at this point. Then again, I didn't think we could get rid of those skulls. So, who knows? I owe it to the guy at this point, I feel like, to give him the chance to try again if he wants to. But I think this is going to be the last time I try with the teeth. And I think I'll probably tell him that way too, that our efforts are better spent working on just about anything else. So, yeah, if we have time next week, we can reline some of the teeth. But I want to get into the highlights, the red and the silver. The silver in this eye, I think, is going to need to wait 3 weeks before we can do that. And then he wants to brush some more of the black into the eye the same day. So, yeah, the eye's not complete yet. So even though I like the way it looks right now, I know some people have been apprehensive about it. And some people have flat out said that they preferred the eye the way it was before. I disagree. I think this gives it a much more detailed and much more interesting look. And I think it's got a lot more depth to it the way it is. But people have their opinions, and that's fine. They're welcome to them. But yeah, there's going to be a lot more done to this still. So I wouldn't get too attached to any one thing about my suit, because anything can change. That's kind of the whole journey of Remy, the ever-evolving tattoo, as I've been called. Not just one of them, but the entire thing. I say it all the time, but I made it really clear when I started my Instagram presence and then into my YouTube and TikTok and all that. When you go with a name like Ephemeral Remy, ephemeral meaning short-lived, you should assume that nothing I'm doing is permanent necessarily, or that it won't change. I was quite clear on that from the very beginning. Even when I was working on my first suit, I was changing things on that all the time. So that first suit was not a complete work ever. It was always in motion. I would get to the end of my throat tattoo. I think I got to the end of my throat tattoo 5 times. I just kept going higher, changing the finish, extending it higher, and then changing the way that higher was. And it's not that I didn't like things. It was always just like, I could do more with this. I could do more with this. That's still the same thing that's happening now. Like, people need to stop thinking of things like, oh, he changed it because he hated it, or he didn't like it, or that it was flawed in the way it was. Sometimes it was flawed, but sometimes it's just that I'm on to the next thing, and I don't really understand people's attachment to past iterations of things. Maybe it's just my unique perspective on it, but I think that as long as it existed, that's enough. And so that my way of thinking, one day, nothing we're going to have anymore. Everything ends. We don't get to keep anything that we acquire. Even our skin is subject to change. Why not just lean into it, work with it, grow and change along the journey, and don't get too attached to things, because life will take things from you anyway. You should just be getting used to that and getting better at dealing with it, I think. So anytime I've ever made a change to things that people don't like, I always think that if I were to listen to that sort of influence or that sort of voice, I would have never gotten my first tattoo. I certainly would have never reworked elements of my first suit. I would never then have blacked that suit out or added new tattoos like these. Like, I would have never done any of that if I listened to that sort of apprehension. So I'm loving the way the eye's coming out. I think it gives it such a more dynamic look, and it really makes it fit in more with this Lovecraftian suit that I'm building. When it's all said and done, people are going to see the fly eye sort of influence that I've taken with it. And I think it carries well to this giant monster that I've been building now for the last 5 or 6 months. And when all of this is done, there's going to be a lot more silver elements throughout the chest and throughout the stomach, and through obviously in the eye, and more red elements. And so a lot of this stuff is, you have to have the vision. I always say you have to have the vision to see what's possible and then get there. Like, people would have never assumed I could get red over black. So now if you can assume that I have it here, I don't know how it's a stretch for people to imagine that I can get it in other places. I don't know if it's that people would expect that I would run out of stamina for this project and just not carry it out. I don't know what it is in particular, but people can't understand where I'm going with this or how it's going to happen, because I think they would not have the drive to get there or understand how it was possible. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that people assume that since they wouldn't have the vision to realize a project like this, that no one would. But I'm not even close to tired of doing this. This last session that I did feel a little bit worn out by the end of it, just because we were working in the same spot for so long. But those days are all part of this. Super detailed sessions are going to be part of bringing something like this to life and making it look good, making it look three-dimensional when we're basically tattooing in the dark. So you really have to bust out every stop. You have to go that extra mile, where before we could have just used skin breaks as the light source in this eye. We could have used the negative that's black. That could have been the highlight. Now we have to create that highlight with the silver, because it's going to need that so that the contrast is strong enough. That's part of doing work over black. I'm perfectly fine with that. I can understand how some people would see that and they would be nervous or overwhelmed by just how much work needs to go into something like this. You can see here, there is a bit of the old highlight in the eye. It would have been a greater highlight pre-blackout, but we're not in pre-blackout. I'm in black on black territory now, and so we have to do things slower and more difficultly. But that's what also makes it more fun and more interesting. And there's going to be people out there, I don't know if it's happening now or if it'll be happening way later after I've made these videos, but there will be people out there with tattoos they don't like that will see what I've done and go, oh, I could do something like that, but maybe with a different image. You know, it's this feed now for me is all about showing people what's possible over blackout. That's what it's become now. It's no longer about just having nice blackout tattoos. And I know that some people have been, I think, probably a little bit apprehensive about that because I again changed the direction as I did the first time from just cool tattoos to blackout tattoos. From that, I went to, it's no longer about blackout tattoos. Now it's about what comes next. And I think a lot of people don't like what comes next. They wanted the blackout to be final for some reason, because I think that it's just hard to understand the ever-evolving tattoo project. And maybe that's because we haven't seen it much before, if at all. I don't know. Maybe it's for all kinds of reasons, but for whatever the reasons are, I've been a little bit slow to share this journey. I'm always, right now when this vlog airs, I'll always be about 3 or 4 weeks ahead. And I do that on purpose because I don't feel like people can keep pace with my level of innovation. And that's not arrogance, that's just, it seems to be the case that whenever I make a change to something, some people get annoyed. And so if they were seeing how rapidly I was changing things, I feel like they would be even more uncomfortable. And the funny thing is that I'm not uncomfortable with it at all. It's almost like I'm managing people's expectations now because my project has become so conscious publicly. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with your friends and give it a like. Likes help out much more than you think. I'll just show the eye one more time, real close up. I think once we get the silver in there, it's going to look really, really awesome. Probably the coolest iteration of the eye yet. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys again soon.